The views expressed on Teachavision are those of the interviewee and interviewer and do not represent Screenless Allies as a whole.
Hello there, and welcome to Teachavision, where everyone has a different vision of learning, episode number 24. My name is Jose Briseño, and first of all, as of this recording, we hope you had a happy new year. We wish that 2022 is a great year for everyone that listens to Teachavision, and looking forward to bringing you more surprises to both Screenless Allies and the podcast. But for now, let's continue with part 4 of the interview with Mr. Bill McCann. And on this part, he talks to us about how Dancing Dots actually got started, some of the obstacles, what happened to get to where he is now. Remember, you can check out his website at dancingdots.com, dancingdots.com. We'll have that website on the show notes for you to go visit. Also, a lesson on songs for divorces. All that and more right here on Teachavision by Screenless Allies. Now we're going to go into the questions of what made you decide that you wanted to begin Dancing Dots.
Well, that goes back to the college days, actually, where I was in college in the late 70s, and I heard about two things. I heard about people using computers to print out musical scores, and I heard about a guy named David Holliday who went on to start a company called Raised Computing. But I met David, I think, in 1979, 80, 81, somewhere around there. I met him. He was presenting at the Library for the Blind in Philadelphia, a program he had written for his wife, Karen Navy, who was teaching mathematics at Bucknell University, and she's blind, and she needed a way to put equations on the board. And David figured out a way for her to be able to do that and to be able to braille out, to emboss her equations. And of course, you could turn text to braille. And I thought, if you can turn text to braille and mathematical equations to braille, and you can print out print music, then why can't we braille out braille music? So I started talking. In fact, I had a conversation with David about that, and he said, that's a great idea. We ought to do that. And I thought, well, great. He can go do it. I can do other stuff. But he never did it. And I know now why he didn't do it. It was a pretty big job. And also, he had already bitten off a pretty big bite to do what he ended up doing, which was making a literary translator and running a company and all those things. So by the time I got out of music school, I spent a year playing gigs and playing with bands, playing in church for people's wedding ceremonies or whatever. I was getting hired to play for liturgies and different things. And I was...
Divorces?
What's that?
Did you ever play for divorces?
No, I never got a call for that, but I mean, I would have if anybody called me.
Would there even be songs for divorces?
You know, I used to run a band, and it was always interesting to see what people chose for their first dance. Like, what do you guys want to do for your first dance, at your wedding?
Uh-oh.
And people would choose a song that you may know. It's called What I Did for Love. It sounds like such a romantic song, What I Did for Love. Okay, great. Well, if you look at the lyrics, it's like, just a day goodbye and point me toward tomorrow. We did what we had to do. What we did for... Anyway, it's a song about breaking up.
Wow.
It's like...
I'm going to look that up myself.
But I realized, people just... Non-musicians, they just go by the title. So if the title's What I Did for Love, that sounds so nice. Okay, well, anyway, how did we get there?
Divorces. Right, divorces.
Oh, yeah.
But yes, sir. So we were going on the origin of Dancing Dots and why it began.
Yeah. So I had this idea very early on, but at the time I had the idea, I didn't have the skills to make it happen. So in God's providence, I end up going to computer school because I need money. Because I thought, I'm going to go to computer school, make some money, because I want to go to Eastman School of Music for my master's degree, because that's where Chuck Mangione went and all these other amazing trumpet players I heard, and I want to go there. So I'm going to need to make some money because everybody in Pennsylvania was telling me, well, we have plenty of music schools in Pennsylvania, and we're not going to send you up to New York.
Right.
No. So I learned to program computers, and I still keep playing, and I'm a part-time musician. I'm playing gigs on the weekend. I'm teaching sighted and blind kids to play the trumpet. and I'm just going on with it. But then, every time I thought about leaving and going to music school, they promoted me, and now they're paying me more money, and now, okay. And then that's a whole other long story, but I'm going back and forth with my college sweetheart, and she's moving on in her musical career. So we finally decided to get married. So when we did that, I said, right now I have this job and they pay me every 2 weeks, whether I deserve it or not. And it's great. But I had this idea to make some software for blind musicians. And one of these days I'm hoping to do it. And she said, okay. So about 5 years later, in the early 90s, my company announced that they were going to give people money if you volunteered to leave your job. And I was like, And they would give you training. And so, after a lot of discussion and prayer and agonizing, we said, okay, this is your shot. So I took the deal, and I took a course in C programming, and I took a course in grant writing, and I forget a couple other things. And I ended up writing a proposal and getting it funded from the U.S. Department of Education to write a prototype of a Braille music translator that ultimately became Goodfield.
Wow, I did not know that. That is awesome. Did you have any obstacles when you first started with Dancing Dots, when creating the company and kind of getting it off the ground?
Yeah, the obstacle when we started a business, of course, the biggest obstacle is finding some money.
Right.
Because you don't have a product, you don't have any income, and you need money to develop what you're going to develop, right? So in my case, actually, before I got the federal grant, I have a cousin who actually, I was talking to him about what I wanted to do. And he said, you need to go talk to these guys at the University of Pennsylvania. They have a small business development center, and they helped me because he has a very successful business. He restores historic buildings or something. They helped him start out. They helped him write a business plan. They helped him find some cash and some funding to get started. And long story short, I talked to them, and then they talked to a professor, and then the professor had a couple of really bright students, and I ended up to be their graduation project. They helped me write a business plan because I never studied business. I studied music and computers, right? So, and part of that was there was a state agency here who would give you $25,000 startup money if you could match it. So I went and got some matching funds from, most of the matching was in what they called sweat equity, which was people's time.
Right.
So people would donate their time and their expertise. And I got a little bit of money from an agency for the blind here, which used to be a lighthouse program. So anyway, I got started. I wrote a very simple prototype of a Braille music translator. Then I got the federal grant. We were able to build on that. Then I was able to bring my friend Albert Milani in, and Albert took my simple prototype and made it into a real program with a user interface. But it did run on DOS, by the way. That was our first version, was DOS. So obstacles, there's always that. Like, how are we going to keep eating and paying the bills while we're starting this little business,
For sure. For sure. That was probably the hardest one for you. But I mean, I can imagine after that, it was kind of a bit of a semi-smooth sailing. Of course, there were probably mild obstacles along the way, but you would say it was a successful journey.
Overall, it's been a successful journey, but some years were very scary. How are we going to get through this? And then the latest example of that was the pandemic, of course.
Right.
Because the schools were shutting down. People weren't ordering anything. We just weren't doing as much business. But fortunately, this year, that has all turned around. People are ordering stuff. We're doing a lot of training. We're doing a lot of sales of published books. We publish software, of course, and training. So put that all together, we're having a good year.
Well, that's good, sir. Now, you're already starting to talk about your software. So for the listeners, can you describe your products in a summary? If anyone asked you, what is Goodfield? What is Lime? What would you tell them?
Yeah, well, I like to say that what we've done is automate the access to musical scores. So our first product is called Goodfield, and Goodfield is, if this means anything to your listeners, it's kind of like the Duxbury for music. Duxbury takes Microsoft Word files or PDFs or whatever they do, text files that are in print, and automatically applies the rules of translation for literary Braille, and you have a Braille document. We do that with musical scores or musical documents. So we have a program called Lime that's kind of like a Microsoft Word for musical notes. Instead of typing letters into Lime, you type notes and you type accents, and slurs, and all the components of a score. It pops up in print on the screen. Once you like that, you just click on a button that says Launch Goodfield, and Lime says, Goodfield, here's a score for you. Turn it into Braille. So that's what we've done. So that helps sighted people because they don't have to spend years becoming that specialist Braille music transcriber. If they know print music and they can use a computer, they can prepare the print score. Yeah, it looks good. Okay, Goodfield turned it into Braille, and Goodfield makes the Braille score. They don't have to be an expert. And for the blind users, if you're good with using a Windows computer and a screen reader, you can use what we call the interactive talking score feature of Lime. So as you move through the score note by note, it plays the pitch and it tells you the name of the note and the duration of the note. And if you have a Braille display, and this only works with JAWS at the moment, not other screen readers, we can work with the talking piece of it, but JAWS and a Braille display, you can feel the actual Braille music notes as you're going through the score.
Which was pretty cool when I first got to see this back in the middle school days. So for a kind of quick background, I actually got to work with Mr. Bill back in the day at Texas School for the Blind. He went and taught a 2-week program on music. I wish that there was more at the time. I wish we could actually have worked a lot more with it because I thought it was pretty impressive. I went 2 years. I thought he had enough of me after one, but I decided to go back for one more.
Yeah, that's right. You did an encore. Yeah.
I did an encore and I thought it was pretty amazing. Now, for people that don't know what Duxbury is, we'll put that in the show notes so that way they can go take a look at that. And of course, Goodfield will go in and you can emboss that to a Braille embosser and be able to put that in a binder and take that to band class with you or whatever music class you got going on. So, which is pretty interesting. There is a product in there that you have, Sharp Eye. Can you tell me what that does? Because it also blends into Lime and Goodfield.
When you get to Goodfield, we call it a suite of applications because it's not just one program. So you get a license for Goodfield itself, which is the Braille translator. You get Lime, which is the music notation editor in print that we've made accessible. And then you get a third application called Sharp Eye, Music Reader. And that's a music scanning program, music OCR program. Goodfield is a program that Albert and I developed here with help from a few other smart people. And Lime is a program that we've acquired a few years ago from the original developer, Dr. Lippold Haken from the University of Illinois. But Sharp Eye is a program that we licensed, but we did not develop. It was not a program that was developed with visually impaired people in mind. But it's great for sighted people who can read print music because you can put the music on your scanner or you can take a PDF document and break it up into TIFF images and open those. But basically, Sharp Eye analyzes the image and figures out what all these lines and spaces and ovals mean, and it makes us a print score that you can import into Lime, and then from Lime you can make it accessible either in Braille or in the talking score feature we talked about. And we have a related product called Lime Lighter that actually magnifies the music for people with low vision and has special scrolling options that you can use a wireless pedal and scroll your music, if you're not a Braille reader. So that product has been growing.
Thank you for joining us for this edition of Teachavision by Screenless Allies. We'll see you on the next one. Meanwhile, you can check out our website at screenlessallies.com, SCREENLESSALLIES.com. Check out our Facebook, facebook.com/ScreenlessAlliesOfficial. And most importantly, please tell your friends about us. And if you have any suggestions or comments or questions, you can definitely email those to info@screenlessallies.com. We'll see you next time, and thank you for listening.